Small talk is a very important area for all of you, whether you are beginners in the learning of English or you have reached an advanced level. How well we can use small talk in all contexts shows the way in which we are mastering the English language. Today's video is about small talk tips. I will give you 5 pointers as to how you can master the skill of small talk. You can become better in the use of the language and use it in small talk. As you know, this is Sumita Roy's English classroom, and I'm giving you various ideas to improve your English. Since most of you would like to speak, small talk is a wonderful occasion for you to speak. What is a small talk? A small talk is when you meet somebody, you just want to carry out a casual conversation for a little time. It's not something which is very huge. It's not something where you are going to exchange a lot of ideas. Here are some simple ideas which you will exchange. We can call it as an icebreaker. That is, with a person whom you meet, you want to speak about something and you begin with small talk. Later, you might become very good friends and you can exchange your life stories or you can talk about something very serious. You can argue, you can debate, you can disagree, or you can support each other and build up very creative ideas. But small talk is not like that. Small talk is, as the name suggests, only a very small conversation. Just a few exchanges, and that is small talk because it gives you a level of comfort with the person. So, the first point which we have to speak about is how important is small talk. Small talk is important because all of us love to communicate. We like to talk to each other. When you meet a person, you might want to talk or you might wait for the other person to say something. You have constant occasions of small talk wherever you are waiting for 2 minutes and you find that there are some others around you. They might be friends or strangers, but you might start a conversation. That is natural. All of us would like to converse, all of us would like to say something. We don't want to keep silent and we don't want to, just be ourselves. We look around to see who we can talk to. And this is where small talk comes. The importance of small talk is that it introduces you to people. It also gives you an opportunity of trying out your language. It gives you an opportunity to find out what the other person's interests are, what that person would like to do, or what that person prefers. All these you can find out by small talk. A person who does not know how to carry out small talk is a failure in all social situations. I remember long back in one of the videos, somebody had asked me for social conversation. The first step for social conversation, if that viewer is still watching this video, I would like to give you the answer now. The first step in social conversation is small talk. You have varieties of small talk which you can indulge in, and you must take these up seriously. So, the importance of small talk is one, it gives you a chance to speak. Two, it also tests your language. Our confidence, our ability to use the language, all these come through in small talk. If you are just a beginner, you might have a few questions or a few phrases, few ideas which you can use. If you have reached another level, a higher level of learning English, you will indulge in a small talk which is more complicated. So, what are the points which you have to do? I told you now first, what is the importance of small talk that I gave you? Now, let us move on to the next point, and that is what should be the best tips for being good at the skill of small talk. What tips would I like to give you in order to make you good at small talk? The first of the tip is it is not enough only to start the conversation. I have already given you a video on how to begin a conversation. Now, here is it's not enough to only begin a conversation. You have to listen to the answer. That means for good small talk, for you to learn the skill of small talk, you must be a good listener. 100% attention you must give to the person to whom you want to, involve in small talk. This person will reply to your question. You give a question, the person replies. And then what do? You continue by asking a few more questions. So, unless you listen, you won't know what is the answer that has been given. That means that you should be aware of the cue. The cue means the other person's words, the other person's message which has come to you. If you ask a question and you get an answer and you go off on a totally different angle, then that small talk fails because that person will get confused by saying, "We were discussing this, suddenly you went off somewhere." Many people do that. They start with one thing and they go off, they divert to a completely new thing. Now, this is very bad for small talk because it is small. So let us keep to a single topic. Let us ask questions or elicit comments, try to get comments from the other person on a single topic. Instead of asking questions always, we can also give our opinion, our idea. But for all this, you need to listen properly. Then many times our conversation depends on non-verbal clues. Suppose you ask a question in small talk and the other person is looking uncomfortable. The other person hasn't said anything, but by seeing the face of the person, you make out that person is not comfortable with your question. Then you change it immediately and ask something else. Don't keep harping on the same point. Don't keep repeating the same point when you know that the other person is not comfortable, is not happy with what you have asked. So, being aware, not only listening to the words, but using your eyes to see whether the small talk is suitable or unsuitable by reading the non-verbal messages of your conversationalist. You have a person whom you're talking to. So, to that person, you must read the non-verbal clues also, the non-verbal message also. Now you have to look at the situation, the context. That is the third important idea in this point. The first point was importance of small talk. This is the second point. What are the skills you require for small talk? Then we will go on to three other points because I told you we will discuss 5 points today. So the third is you should be aware of the situation. You look around yourself. and decide what is right in that context. You are visiting somebody or you have met somebody at a social gathering, and there you start speaking about something which is very sad. I heard that you had a bereavement. Now, this is a happy occasion. Everybody is laughing and enjoying, everybody is listening to music. Suddenly, you start talking about something which doesn't fit into this music, this whole situation. Then you have to change. Somebody is looking very sad and very scared. Then you go and tell them a joke. That also is not a good beginning for a small talk. When everybody is looking serious, then you have to also look at the situation and do. So these are the three important points you have to remember to be a good listener, not only to words, but to also read the non-verbal messages. And finally, the third of the ideas is that you have to talk according to the situation. Now we have covered two areas. I told you I'll give you 5 areas. The first area was the importance of small talk. The second area was best small talk tips, what we require to learn in order to be good at small talk. Now, the third point is questions you have to ask in order to start this small talk. Somebody might say, hello, how are you? And then to continue this conversation, you can ask a few questions. These questions can be about work. If a person is employed or a person is looking for a job, you can talk about work. You can also talk about hobby. If you see a person indulging in a hobby, you can always ask them for a hobby. I will do many videos in this small talk series. So I will try to do videos on hobby and work, etc. Then you can also talk about travel. You can talk about movies or books. You can talk about family or health. All these are possibilities which you have when you're asking questions. So let me give you a few questions for each of them. Suppose somebody greets you and somebody says, how are you today? Then you say, fine, thank you. Or I'm good, thank you. Then you say, did you get a job? Or did you get your promotion? This is where small talk begins. The person replies by saying, oh, yes, I must share with you that I got my promotion or I got a very good job. Or the person says, no, sorry, I did not get the promotion, but I think I need to wait for some more time. I'm still trying for a job, but I haven't got a job yet. Then you ask another question by saying, what kind of a job are you looking for? Or what are your career plans? What kind of a promotion do you want? Then that person tells you what kind of a job or promotion they are looking for. Somebody might say, we are planning to change our job. And then you again ask that, what are you looking for? In this way, if you ask 5 questions and the other person replies to 5 questions, then you end by saying, okay, I'm very happy to have spoken to you. I'm sure you will succeed in whatever you are doing. Now, you can also ask about work by saying, do you like the company where you're working? Or what is the nature of your job? What do you do? What is your designation? These are all questions which will get the small talk started. So when somebody greets you, when somebody meets you, these are the questions you can ask. Then if you're talking about hobby, then you can start by complimenting the person on the hobby. You say that, I heard your hobby is singing. I heard you practicing this morning. You have a very beautiful voice. Or if you want to know from a person what is their hobby. Then you can say, what do you do in your free time? Then that person will say that my interests are like this, and this is what I do. Then you can say, oh, I also have a similar hobby. Or you can say, I've never met a person who has the hobby which you have. Tell me more about it. Or you share your own hobby. In this way, the small talk goes ahead. Then you can also ask, when did you begin taking an interest in? And then you mention the hobby, whichever the person has, uh, said that this is my hobby. Then you say, when did you start becoming interested in this hobby? What do you do to take this hobby further? How much time, free time, do you have to devote to your hobby? Do you have friends who have similar hobbies? In so many questions, the conversation is carried out. Then you say, it was very interesting to know about your hobby. Somebody tells you that puppetry is their hobby. Somebody else tells you that photography is their hobby. So you find out all the details. What kind of camera do you use? What aperture do you use? All these technicalities you know because you say, even my hobby is photography, but I'm not such a good photographer as you may be. If you continue like this, you will have a small talk, and that is very interesting. You can also have, as I told you, travel by saying, how was your vacation? That is a wonderful question which will have anybody interested in small talk. You say that, give me some idea about my next vacation. Again, you will get lot of ideas. That person will share where they have gone, what they have seen. Can you show me some photographs of the places you visited? What are the best places you saw in the city? Have you been on international tours? Can you tell me a good international destination? These are all starters for small talk. When you use these, you can have a series of questions. It need not be only a single question and then the other person answers. Small talk would imply that you ask a question, you get an answer of two, three sentences, you ask another question or give your own comment, and then the conversation goes forward. Then you have movies or books. You say, have you seen the recent released film? And you name the film. Or would you like to come for a movie with me this weekend? Or what are the movies worth watching on television? Do you have any movie watching club in this locality? In this way, you can ask. Books also, you can ask. Have you read the recent award winning book? Or I have read an interesting book and I think all you should read it too. You're talking to a friend where you start. Then the friend asks you, what is this book? Tell me about it. What is the theme of that book? And then the conversation is carried out. You can ask about family by saying that, how is your father or mother? How is your son doing? What is your daughter doing these days? Then, are you shifting home? When are you going to your new house? All these personal family details can be asked. Health is another issue where small talk is often there. If you go to a park early in the morning, you find elderly people sitting there and talking about their health by saying, yesterday I felt very breathless. Then they rushed me to the hospital, but I found that I was doing too much exercise and there is nothing wrong with me. Another person says, I have this problem, it is very cold now and I cannot bear this cold. So I think I will stop walking from tomorrow. Then the other friends all encourage. So you have a small talk with five elderly people, and all of them are talking about their health because at that phase in life, health becomes very important. So this was point number three. Let me revise for you again what we had, that, we have. Point number one was importance. Point number two was what you have to cultivate. Point number three was questions which you can ask. Now, point number four is very important. That is, you need to avoid controversial topics. That means something which is unpleasant, something which is argumentative. You say, "Oh, hello, I heard you had a fight with your neighbor yesterday. Did you hit that person?" Now, this kind of a thing is unnecessary. It is not small talk. The other person gets very angry. "I heard you shouting at home last evening. Why were you shouting so much?" Now, why would the person tell you all this? "You look so stressed out. Would you like to tell me what is your problem?" Now, you don't want to confide in a person whom you really don't know. So, number four is important, and that is please avoid controversial topics. Now, the last of the five tips told you, I'll tell you five important ideas how to make your small talk successful. And that is the small talk context. In what situation we can use small talk? You can use it when you are meeting new people. You are standing at the bus stop, you meet, the bus hasn't come for a long time. There is another person waiting with you, and you start talking to that person. Happens very often. You are traveling a long distance by train, you are sharing a single area with another person or two people, and you start a small talk with them. So, strangers, new people, we always start a small talk. We don't start a serious conversation with them. Then you can have it with friends or strangers. This also is, possible. A person might be a stranger or a friend, might be a colleague or a classmate. You can always have a small talk with them. On the telephone, very often we have small talk. You just call up a person, speak for a little time on general things, and then the conversation ends. That is simply a small talk. It is called touching base. You just keep in touch with your friends, nothing much to say, but just hello and what they are doing with their day and so on. Then whenever you have free time, you might have small talk context with your neighbors and with your family members or friends of your family members. It is possible that a family member has brought a friend home and you can have a small talk there. Or you go out with your family somewhere and there you meet a friend in the shopping complex, you meet somebody. Then your wife or your husband or your son, daughter introduces this person, and you have a small talk by asking that person a few questions. This also is a very important point. So, these are the 5 points which you have to keep in mind when you are eager to improve your small talk. Small talk is something which comes to us without any clue. It doesn't tell us beforehand that, here we have to have a small talk. When you want to give a speech, already you have prepared for the speech. When you are just learning for some competition or some program, you already know that there is a program or there is a competition. But small talk comes spontaneously. I have given you a video on speaking spontaneously. Spontaneous would be as you see the situation, you think immediately and you start speaking. That is the best way in which you can go forward. So, unless you do that, you cannot be good at small talk. Therefore, I would recommend that those of you who are beginners make a series of simple questions on the areas which I have mentioned. Not only work, hobby, etc., but even inside. I have given you household activities video. So, similarly, you make a question answer form there. What are you cooking today? Or how do you keep your house clean? Where did you buy your furniture? These are all topics for small talk relating to your household. In case you want to be well prepared for your small talk, because you are beginners, you're starting. Just a few minutes back, I got a message, a long message from a person who says that he would love to learn English but is not able to speak a single sentence. Please remember that unless you practice speaking, you cannot speak a single sentence. That is why I don't want you to stop at watching the video. I want you to watch the video and practice. In every video, I'm telling you what practice you need to do. Today, also, in the 5 points I gave you, I have given you enough material for practice. Are you listening properly? Are you talking the right context? You go to a person's house who has suffered some loss, who has suffered something terrible, and you go there with a smiling face and you extend your hand and say, "Hi, buddy, how are you? It's wonderful to see you." This is not correct. The situation is all wrong. There you have to go by saying, "I'm so sorry that you have suffered a loss. I feel for you. I sympathize with you. I can understand your problem." These are all the sentences you need. So if the beginners can prepare like this, thinking in your own language, translating it till you stop translating. Remember that if you continue to translate, you will never learn good English. First few months, translations are allowed. Later, you must think in English and speak in English. But if I say think in English, the beginners might get scared. I remember students telling me who, used to come from rural areas, from the villages, that the first day they would come to college, they said they could not speak a word of English. After 3 years or after 2 years, when they finished their UG or PG courses, they could speak excellent English because from day one, we were telling them to speak whatever English they could. So don't be disheartened if you're a beginner. Now, if you are an advanced learner, small talk is a wonderful way to use your vocabulary, to use your grammar, and to raise the standard of your conversation, your small talk, to a higher level. There you can have small talk, which is very exciting. A small talk where you use, instead of saying a vacation, you can say that, "Let us start an exploration of the places nearby." Or, "Shall we go on an expedition of adventure?" So you are, talking about travel. I gave you simple sentences of travel. Here I'm giving you sentences which are complicated, sentences which use higher vocabulary, and they are longer sentences, longer questions, where you can use all your knowledge of grammar and English structures. When you do this, improvement comes to everybody. Remember that whenever I make a literature video, I tell you that language learners can learn a lot from it. If you don't feel like learning the literature part, at least you have a story. And if you retell that story, you learn by storytelling. One way of learning English well is by telling stories. Remember, as children, we used to tell stories of Cinderella and so on. Somebody has asked me the story of the cobbler. That is not the cobbler. In one video where I told you about professions, I said the elf and the shoemaker. The elves are supernatural beings. They're small size fairies like. ELVES, the elves and the shoemaker. So someday I can tell you that story, and that story will be a story for you to learn. Beginners will use a simple narration, and advanced learners will use the story in a very advanced way, creative way, because creative speaking, creative writing, this is very, very important. So I have given you some tips for improving small talk. Now I'm going to make a series of videos where actual examples of small talk are there. Thank you and all the best.